Have you noticed? Have you noticed that the powerful who used to, with impunity, get away with everything in secret, now they can't even tie their own shoe. They can't walk a straight line. They don't make an utterance without the truth about that being exposed. Isn't that pretty much the root of your upset? Is that all this abuse of power is coming to light? Isn't that generally the threat that you all have to wake up to in the morning? Now you know. It's part of the process. Now you know. And you can use that knowledge. First for yourself, and then for more. There's nothing wrong with what is going on. Nothing. It is precisely, exactly what we want to have happen. We want all of these power elite to be exposed to the concept of ethics. And who has all that power? Is it Bush? Is it Caesar? It's us. We have. Do you know what the definition of ethics is? Because some people have ethics and morals kind of niched together. So I want to make sure that you don't think that one is the same. Morals. The president, our president, is very, very moral, isn't he? He certainly is, and so is Ashcroft and Rumsfeld and Cheney and Wolfowitz. They're all extremely moral people. Morals are a set of ascribed rules that are laid on to you and your consciousness. Morals are a blanket solution to spontaneous situations. Write that one down. Morals are a blanket solution to spontaneous situations. Certainly is. Certainly is. First of all, you.
Yeah, exactly.
What she said was, it's just an attempt to control things. And of course that's true. But it's starting with you. Ethics. Ethics shine from within yourself out into the world. Ethics is spontaneous solutions to spontaneous situations. I'll repeat again, yeah. Ethics are spontaneous solutions to spontaneous situations. Sounds better, doesn't it? You see, it's perfectly moral for us to be over there murdering as many Iraqis as possible. Because, first of all, they're godless. And second of all, they're standing on our oil. be morally motivated to be over there. Unfortunately, a whole lot of Americans agree. Because they themselves are moral. Morals all have to do with reason and your ascription to a certain set of rules, a certain set of reasons for things. Consciousness is moving past that. And you guys are the tip of that little iceberg floating by of ethics. It's a lot larger than just us. But we're the ones that showed up. Okay. Let's hold for a second. You having a good time? Yeah. Excellent. This shouldn't be all serious. In fact, it's going to get more loose later. We got to build a foundation. And a foundation is made of heavy stones, or it won't hold up. So I'm laying a heavy stone today, right now, okay?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How much of this actually would transfer over then to like Stonehenge? I mean, they've been trying to figure out all this other stuff in some of the older cultures, and it would seem to me that that's been misread
Certainly.
for quite a while. I'm not saying it isn't star related or anything or calendar related. I just think that they've been trying to put it into our Gregorian calendar. It's not going to fit.
Won't fit. Now, notice, Stonehenge is a circle.
Yeah.
And a circle is made up of 360 degrees.
Yes. A lot of circles, actually. There's in Scotland.
Yeah. The word tune, by the way, T-U-N, tune means stone. And the first calendars were rings of stones. 360 of them, as a matter of fact. And they would be moved in or out of the circle to mark that day. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Are we on again? Okay, good. Okay. So, here we have ethics, the concept of ethics. Now, ethics isn't going to stop. This is a new consciousness which is just going to go, just like all these consciousnesses overcame each other and interwove, so will ethics. You'll see quite a churning, though. A churning. A changing. More rapidly than you will be comfortable with. More, yes?
What do you see as the night aspect of ethics?
The night aspect? I hope you're going to be here this afternoon. Because that's what we're going to be going into. Yeah. Universal consciousness. We're almost on our break. Universal consciousness also has a product. Yes?
Could I ask if 2004 then will be day 5 of the...
No, it'll be 2007. Right now we're in the third day. 2004 is the third night. That's 2004. 2005, 2006, 2007. Okay, we'll go into that, believe me. Universal cycle. The consciousness is conscious co-creation.
Yay.
Good time.
And that evolution or that development will take 260 days. I'm fooling with you. Actually, it took 16.4 billion years. It's already happening right here, right now. Please notice that we are co-creating this experience. Okay, I wanted to go over this really quickly. Can I see the hands of the people who just showed up? Okay, hi. Well, What we've gone over this morning was a new understanding of the Mayan calendar which has come forward. A lot of people understand the Mayan calendar, people who study the Mayan calendar understand it from an astrological point of view, but there is much, much more to this calendar than the personal influences. And what we were talking about is consciousness and calendars and how they are associated. Calendars being the agreement of what time it is, and consciousness being the awareness of awareness. They are linked together because our viewpoint is located by time, by the agreement of time and the agreement of place. So where you find your consciousness is this orientation of time and place. So calendars are very intimately tied to consciousness, that agreed upon time. And our time, or our calendar is actually the Gregorian calendar based on the sun and our orbit around the sun. This means that our civilization's consciousness is focused on physical evidence of things moving through space, of the sun moving, or the earth moving around the sun every 365 days. The Mayan calendar, of course, is not associated with this movement. The Mayan sacred calendar has nothing to do with any physical alignment of any planets or stars or galaxies in the universe. It has nothing to do with those other than the universe is a holographic conscious projection. And you know that in a hologram, any small piece of the hologram contains the whole of the hologram. So what we see of those alignments and what we extrapolate from astrological alignments actually comes from creation itself. The whole flow and the whole pattern of creation is what the Maya were actually timing with their two calendars. This 260-day calendar that some of you have the calendar, you just bought one, as a matter of fact, Debbie, have the calendar that explains or that shows the 13 intentions and the 20 aspects of creation in the pattern that they repeat. On a grand scale, that pattern is repeated over and over in a larger cycle called the tune. It's a 360-day cycle. And it is these measurements of 360 days added and added and added and added together that present the overall pattern of the evolution of consciousness. Starting 16.4 billion years ago, consciousness began action, reaction. That is, all the chemical bonding, all of the heat, friction, gravitation, all the physical laws have been established from the beginning of the Big Bang forward. That's where consciousness was at its most basis level, conscious of action, reaction, and setting up those rules. From there, we move to another cycle of consciousness. 820 million years ago, this one started. And this is a consciousness of stimulus response of life. This individual cell showed up way down here at the very end of this action-reaction cycle. There were actions, reactions, recombinations of molecular makeup, all the way to where there was the living cell. Those living cells conglomerated together into organisms. They organized for better survival potential. And that went all the way through developing the idea of stimulus response as a way to enhance survival and consciousness. Here, 41 million years ago, we started the next cycle called the familiar cycle because the monkeys that showed up 40 million years ago carried forward this consciousness of individual or stimulus-individual response. In other words, not stimulus response, but stimulus, oops, I did forget it. Stimulus-individual response. There we go.
No.
Yeah? Here, let's move it some more. Ooh, that feels good. There we are.
Thought you checked right away.
The monkeys showed up 40 million years ago and developed the idea of the individual consciousness rather than part of a group consciousness. It was more of a responsibility, but also more of a flexible cooperation towards survival. 2 million years ago, it was when Australopithecus showed up, the first tailless ape, and these people started making decisions rather than just reacting to things. They could start to see similarities and differences, and this is a similar situation, but it calls for a different response. Much more flexibility again to enhance survival and consciousness. 102,000 years ago, we started what's called the cultural cycle. And the cultural cycle was the birth of reasons for things. Going from decisions to going to recognizing reasons, or extrapolating reasons. Reasons for stars, or sky, or water, or rain, or fire, or rocks. The reason for all those things. That evolved into what we now know as religions and cultures, but it's all based on the reasons for survival. Next, starting in 3115 BC, we went into what's called the national cycle. And this national cycle is one based on concept or consciousness of law. Of law. And right and wrong. Crime and punishment. This whole, as a matter of fact, during the last 400 years is when we've discovered all of the natural laws of science or physics. From there, we go into the planetary cycle, which started in 1755 AD. This was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution and the beginning of power. Power to manipulate raw materials into products. Power to manipulate the whole environment with greater and greater ease. Irrigation, Grand Coulee Dam, all that kind of thing. Really, that power, including electrical power, steam power, now atomic power, all of that has come forward during this last 256 years. Then, starting January 5th, 1999, a new consciousness broke upon the shore. That is, the consciousness of ethics. And ethics is flowing through everywhere. Flowing smoothly, permeating everything. Like all the emanations from the universe, from the sun and from other parts of the galaxy that permeate right through us. All the X-rays, gamma rays, all those physical particles, ethics is moving through with even less impediment in everyone and everything. The only place it shows up is where there is resistance put up by power. When power puts up resistance, it is smacked right down. And that's what we're seeing everywhere worldwide, is the continuation of this evolution of consciousness through various stages. And we're going to be going much more into depth about this transition this afternoon. That's what we're going to go into. In the future, starting February 10th of 2011, a new consciousness will come upon us, and that is the consciousness of co-creation. Down here we was created. Up here, conscious co-creation. That's been the journey. And within us, because we want to make this clear to all the new people and reiterate it for you guys. This whole pattern of 1 through 13 of 7 days and 6 nights to each level, these 13 parts of the cellular cycle, the bottom one, is the foundation that we're all still standing on. You're sitting on a chair, which is made of the particles that were invented during this period of time. You're using gravity to keep yourself there, which is all part of this development. This last 1.26 billion years, we're still living in that. It's still going on. In 63.4 million years, the end of the mammalian cycle, we're still in it. Here we are, mammals. Then this 3.2 million years, we're in that. We're still living in that period of time. This 160,000 years of the last section of this whole 2 million years, we're still here. We have tribes, don't we? Now it's called school. Yale is a tribe. Harvard is a tribe. Boeing is a tribe. Those are tribal groups. Then we have culture that started 102,000 years ago, this cycle, and it brought us art, and it was based on reason. We're still living in this last 8,000 years of that cycle. We're in every one of these. If you can think of nesting bowls, a salad bowl this big, and then another smaller salad bowl, another one, and now a little dinky thimble cup. That's what this is like. Okay? The importance is that the same amount of change that happened over this 16.4 billion years, the same amount of consciousness evolution occurred at the very next level, but 20 times faster. The same amount of change that happened between when 2 cells got together to where there was elephants and giraffes and us, the same amount of change that occurred there in 820 million years happened in the planetary cycle in just less than 300 years. The current cycle we're in is going to last 12.8 years. The same amount of change that happened down here in 16.4 billion years is going to happen in 12.8 years. The next cycle, conscious co-creation. We talked about this just before we left. We are obviously already co-creating our experience. Obviously. We're just not doing it as consciously as we would wish. A lot of it seems to be unconscious of something. Well, we're going to get that fixed. And it's only going to take 260 days to do it. I know that you guys already recognize that there is some sort of an acceleration happening here. You felt it before you got in this room. You felt it over the last 20 years. You've seen a general acceleration of everything. Mainly, what you've seen is the acceleration of change of consciousness. I want to bring up something, a personal demonstration of this. Everybody in this room was born during this planetary cycle, when consciousness changed every 20 years. And you guys were all born to a couple of very nice people, your parents, who up until the age of 13 or so were way cool. And then once you got to 13, 15 years old or so, you started noticing something. And no matter how politely or not you address this noticing, the fact was that you were far more able to handle situations, handle information, come up with alternatives than your parents ever could. You were more expanded than they were. This was called the generation gap. Remember that? Does anybody remember how long? They did research on this, of course. How long was the generation gap? 20 years. There you have it, your own personal demonstration of the amount of change that was happening every 20 years. Now, that same amount of change is happening once every 360 days. To all of us. The next cycle, that same amount of change will happen in 20 days. Now, this is good news and not such good news. I'm going to give you both, so. The good news is, the more that happens in a short amount of time, the more is possible to occur. The more change there is within an amount of time, the more possible outcomes there are. This is a good thing. This is why we have what are called miracles, technological advances that anywhere back in here would be not understood. Let's take somebody from, let's say the 16th century. Okay? Now, let's take that 16th century guy and put him at your job. In an office with electric lights and telephones and computers and music in the background. Would this guy have any concept? Let's go out and put him in your car and go for a drive on the freeway at 75 miles an hour with Led Zeppelin playing loud on the stereo. From a guy who believes that 55 miles an hour your body will fly apart. This is very dangerous and completely outside of his understanding, and it would be magic and miracles everywhere. That's the good part is, more is possible. We do have a little problem. Remember, right about here, that's 2 million years ago, we dropped the tail, because these guys were tailless apes. We got down out of the trees, put down the tail, and picked up the mind as a tool. It is a tool, my friends, like a hammer. It's a tool. A carpenter does not believe himself to be his hammer. There are a lot of people who believe themselves to be their mind, though, aren't there? Hell, there's a lot of people who believe themselves to be their body. There's a whole lot of people that believe themselves to be their car. But we do have a problem. That problem is the mind. The mind is a tool, and it has a very specific job to do. Your mind is supposed to see the similarities and differences between things. Right? When it's working right, isn't that how it goes? Well, here's a blue chair and there's a green chair. They're similar but different. Which one do I want to sit in? I like blue. Boom. That's the mind. The mind is doing those things. Now the deal is, this is something that you're never taught in school. There's not one psychological psych professor anywhere who will talk about this. This is not a hidden piece of information. It's just not disseminated. Your mind works with mental pictures. Pictures like this. I mean, you think about your refrigerator at home. And think about what's on the inside of the door. You got that? Anybody got mustard in the door? Okay. You see that picture you're looking at? That's your mind. It's a warehouse. It's a storehouse of many, many, many pictures. People who produce movies, special effects people, and people into advertising understand very, very well that your mind operates on pictures. They build them for you all the time. They also understand that your mind takes these pictures at 24 frames per second. "24 frames per second." You know how they do stop action movies, with the little models? They play it back at 24 frames per second and it looks normal. 18 frames per second and kind of go, like that. Because you can see the difference between the frames. Ooh, this is called, by the way, this is technically called the flicker frequency. We're told that there are lots of things in common between humans. Well, there's lots of things in common with everything that is walking or squiggling or wiggling with the mind. All of them, every single one of them, are operating at that frequency. 24 frames per second is the frequency that we are receiving creation upon. Channel 24. Otherwise, you wouldn't be aware of this. You would not be tuned to this frequency. Everyone is receiving at 24 frames per second. That, my friends, is your mind's speed limit. It can't done think no faster than that. You cannot recognize the difference between two things any faster than 24 times per second. If I had a strobe light up here, I could demonstrate it to you. And I will later. For other people. Once I get one. I'll be the strobe for a second, okay? For a few seconds. If we have a strobe going boing, 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 that's probably 1.5 flashes per second or something, you can see the similarities and the differences. That's your job, the job of the mind, is to see the similarities and differences. Now let's take it up to 15 per second. You can still see it looks weird, it's not steady. Okay, let's take it up to 25. Boom. It's a steady light. Uh-oh. Your mind just got put out of a job. Your mind cannot tell the differences between one flash and another. Your mind cannot any longer do its job. The reason that it's telling the similarities and differences between things is only one. That's your survival. When your mind can't do its job, there are some overrides that are built right into the mechanism. When the mind recognizes it's not able to do its job, some other stuff kicks in. The first is this level. I'm going to go with a heavier pen. Stress! Stress! Stress is your walk away from it response. Stress is a built-in mechanism to have you leave a dangerous environment. A dangerous environment is one that is unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen because there are too many unknowns. Too many similarities without any difference. That's what stress is. In all cases. You got stress at work, it's because you don't know what's going to happen. You know what might happen, but you don't know enough about what's going to happen. You got stress in your relationship, same thing. In every case, stress is caused by uncertainty. Uncertainty is because the mind has been, at least temporarily, overwhelmed. And it can't adequately do its job to predict a future, to come up with a sound solution. Every time you guys make a telephone call, you are tapped into a system that makes 2 billion decisions per second. Your mind is doing 33. Or 24, excuse me. Consciousness doesn't have a speed limit, does it? Consciousness is instantaneous. There is no speed limit to it. The mind, though, has a problem. And everybody with one has a problem. That is, that this acceleration isn't going to stop. And there are going to be more and more rapid and more drastic changes all of the time. While the mind is stuck at 24 frames per second.
So what do we do, lose our minds?
Absolutely. But I'm going to go on here. Okay, everybody knows about stress. In fact, the AMA, who are the blood brothers of the pharmaceutical industry, freely admit that 80% of anything that can go wrong with your body starts with stress. They freely admit that. Headaches, hunger, abnormal everything. Psoriasis, overweight, underweight, all of it starts with this. Okay, we know we got drugs for that. Stress. Well, what happens if you don't handle the stress? There's another level that the mind goes to if you don't handle the stress. And that level is fight or flight. Now, at this point, the mind checks out. It gives your body a shot of adrenaline and says, "You get us out of here, boy." There is no more thinking about it. It's running as hard as you can or fighting and kicking and scratching as hard as you can. That's the next level of survival. This is terrorism. This is road rage. This is domestic abuse. This is Columbine High School. And it's on the rise. Everywhere. This is Israel. This is Palestine. This is Iraq. This is Bush, baby. Fight or flight. We know it's there. We know it exists. We know it's uncivilized. So what do? When you're in a situation where there's a lot of stress, you cannot run away. Who would pay the mortgage? Who would pay the insurance? You can't go fighting your boss, because who would bring you cookies in jail? So what do? If you have the stress, you can't run away, you can't fight it off, what do? There is one other level. Unconsciousness. This is the mother of all addictions. And I'm not talking about just drugs, alcohol. No. Workaholics, shopaholics, people who habitually watch television. What are they all endeavoring to do? No matter what the addiction is, it's all a choice of your preferred method to stay unconscious. They are all unconsciousness. Some people use religion. Many people use religion. Or fashion. People, there's lots of different ways to stay unconscious. Basically, they are a denial. Like the Southern Belle. Who does? Don't faint dead away. Why did she go unconscious? Nobody clubbed her in the head. It was a denial of these horrible experiences. Unconsciousness is the mother of all addictions. And the mother or father of all suicides. Be they fast or slow. Suicide being just a rather more permanent denial. So, here we have it. This is what is demonstratively happening to the mind. And indeed, every single person is going completely out of their minds. There is no other way about it. Either you're going to go out the bottom of this thing, and I think I don't have to. I mean, you've got your own examples of this with people who cannot be here because they aren't physical anymore, because there was too much of this. And it's going to get very demonstratively worse. Extremely worse. Please just understand this is what's going on. Knowledge is power. Now you have some. You have that power to be able to stand back and watch it happen. Has anybody ever had a near-death experience where you were going to go, I mean, like an accident usually, and time slowed down? Anybody see that? A few? Okay. Has anybody ever seen a stop motion go like frame by frame? Wasn't that a wonderful experience?
Mine went even farther.
It went backwards?
No, I actually, when you were talking about the consciousness being a separate thing, I didn't see God or anything like that, but I went into a state of awareness where I knew I was part of everything and part of nothing. It was a really phenomenal experience.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I was outside the morgue on a table waiting to go into the morgue. I was, declared dead.
Yeah.
And it transformed me. Nobody believed I was the same person when I woke up. I'm not.
You're not.
Yeah.
Having that experience of at least watching time slow down or go to stop action, which most people have had that. Or a lot of people, more people have had that. What that does is it shows you this mechanism. It shows you what's going on, 24 frames per second. And it's alterable. We pay athletes millions of dollars to play a game, don't we? Millions of dollars. And why do we do that? Are we just stupid? No. We pay them for the same reason that you pay for anything else. Because you admire it. You admire that sweater hanging on the rack. You admire that car sitting in the lot. You admire that guy out there on the field under tremendous stress. And instead of going into fight or flight, he does something entirely different. Something we admire more highly than anything else. He goes into his intuition. In sports, it's called the zone. I'm never going to drink that water. You ever heard about the zone?
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, there's in Sports Illustrated, they've had articles about the zone, and quarterbacks, who as soon as they say, ha! The ball hits their fingertips and everything goes into slow motion. And they see the guy tackling that guy, and they see this current guy coming over here, and they know exactly what's going on the field. They know where their man is and how he's covered and how far down the field he is. And you know where they have everything right there at the tip of their consciousness. And that's why we pay them the money. Because they're able to pull that off time and time again until they can't do it good enough. Then we don't pay them nothing. So, we have an option. We stay in the mind, believing ourselves to be our mind, and our concepts of who we are and should be according to the reasons of the religion that we're a part of, or we move completely out of that game altogether. We leave the mind behind. It's a tool, like a tail. We leave it behind. There are those who will, by their own choice, by their own inclusion within their viewpoint and considerations, that they can do that. And there will be a whole lot of people, you know who they are, who will not be able to do that. Say your goodbyes now, while they can still understand you. What I want to do is I want to demonstrate, as well as I can, how we might be able to flow into that intuition rather than have it be a transitory experience. We've all experienced intuition, right? Just knowing the right thing to do. Those moments when things slow down, that was probably the most dramatic that we've experienced so far, of following your intuition. You didn't have to think about what to do in those moments, did you? You didn't have time to do it, did you? You didn't have those 24ths of a second to decide to move your arm or not. Or to tuck and roll, or whatever it was that kept you here. You just did it. Nike had it right. Just do it. Remember, we had this orientation of consciousness. I'm going to draw it in red here. I'm drawing you too. This is this orientation of your viewpoint. And it's got like a... There's your consciousness, oriented around that point. And then there's this. There's this flow of creation. The sequential, moment by moment by moment, as we perceive it, moment by moment perception of a flow of creation. Now, the source of that flow, whatever it might be, and I'm not saying I know what that is. We're not there yet. none of us are there yet. We're sort of like 3-year-olds that know something's up on the shelf in Mom's kitchen. We know something's up there, but we're just not developed enough to see what it is. We just know something's there. So there is a source point, and from that source point flows all of creation. Now we have found a meter in the Mayan calendar that accurately measures that flow. This is a tool. It's measuring that flow. Now the flow would necessarily be the source of all that can be known. Correct? Your intuition is your own personal knowing. It's really your own personal power. And we all know the law of supply and demand. Okay? The less power is spread around, the more valuable it is. Way back, shamans figured out that we can't have too many shamans in the tribe. But when the Catholics came along, they really got down to business. And this word, intuition, became a death sentence. During the 14th century, there was maybe 4 million women burned, hung, racked, stabbed, drowned for having uttered anything about this. If anyone knew anything without a plausible physical explanation on how they came to know it, they were a witch. And they were put to death. Unfortunately, on rumor often. Out of jealousy, often. It was perpetrated until the men finally figured out that they were going to have only boyfriends if the church didn't stop. It's the truth. Well, the Catholics went and got boyfriends. The priests went and got boyfriends. But the women were becoming so decimated, and mostly the good-looking ones, by the way, moved out of the forest and into the factories. Intuition was the last thing we were to bring with us. That's why there's less men in here than women. Men still have every bit of their intuition. That's why they're not here. Because they intuited that this was going to be all about intuition. And so they are driven away by a force field. There are lots of other people that you'll start to talk to about this information. And they will go, that is their own intuition kicking in. They know what you're going to talk about. And they're not supposed to know. It's not part of their reason for living.
That's why there are no women in the corporate boardrooms, right?
That's right. Although, I'm going to let you know, that the people at the very, very tippy top are using their intuition or somebody else's all the time. The people who have been most successful in investments have been people who have followed their intuition. But that's prohibited for any of the underlings. Intuition. So how do you engage your intuition? Yeah.
Before you go there, would you say something about this force field that prevents people?
Yeah.
Did you mean a literal force field? Or?
Yeah.
Could you say a little bit more about that?
Okay, well, a person, first of all, the mind is a self-preservation instrument. The mind will, right now, your mind is racing with reasons that it needs to be kept a hold of. Well, how would I remember all my phone numbers? Well, I wouldn't even know how to get to work. I wouldn't remember anybody's name. How could I make up excuses if I didn't have a mind? Isn't it? This thing wants to survive more than it wants you to survive. Honest. But it is a tool, more like a pet, more like a pet monkey, more like a pet Tyrannosaurus Rex that has bitten into your neck. The thing is firmly attached. But it's way outclassed by consciousness. And it knows it. So it doesn't want to get anywhere near this. That's actually been my problem over the last 2 years. Because I'm right up against that. And so will you be when you leave here. That's why it's good that there's more numbers. You can talk to one another at least. Most of the people you're going to run into are going, hey. Does that explain that, man?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sir. I was just thinking, welcome to my world.
Yeah. So, how do you actively, on purpose, engage your intuition to where it stays and you can use it every day, all the time? So far we've had little flashes, right? Little flashes of intuition that you either followed or didn't. I mean, later you realize. But, people have intuition all the time, or they'd be all dead. Everyone. I mean, just think about the numbers of times, but just one specific thing. You're in traffic. Everybody's going 60, 70 miles an hour, different lanes of traffic. Vancouver, not here. And you just have the feeling that, I just ought to change lanes. No good reason. Just more open over there. And then immediately after you did that, somebody up ahead puts on their brakes and everybody's going, and you drive by. Woo! That was kind of close. What was that? That was your intuition. Own it. Or more and more likely, because you're here, what you've been experiencing is the phone will ring and you go, oh, Tom. Oh. Hello? Oh, I knew it was you, Tom. Right? More and more and more is happening that way. This is that evolution of consciousness. We're evolving more and more abilities with this consciousness. And what is happening is slowly this is coming into focus. It's going to happen for all the survivors anyway. This is naturally going to occur. But the more people we can expose to this information, the more people will be able to participate in the putting together. Okay? Whether we talked about this or not, it's going to happen. It's just how many people understand it's happening, that's how many people will survive.
And do something about it too, not just understand it.
Oh, actually, all there really is to do is understand it. There's not, that in itself, by understanding it, by working with these energies as they come up, as your intuition dictates, that's all you can do. There's only one thing to do with all this information, and that is be. Be. Move past the doing and the thinking and just be. I know that's not possible right now for any of you or me. This is not something we expect this afternoon.
You never know.
We don't
Happen
have.
to some of us.
Well, I'm talking just be. Because a lot of us, while we're being, are still doing something. Like thinking, or planning, or considering, or twiddling. Doing something. And there really, really is nothing to do with this information other than understand it so that you can be with the process. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And if it doesn't, I don't care. Because that's your mind is trying to make sense of it, and that thing is out the window anyway. So, the flow of creation is the source of all knowing, including your own intuition. The Mayan calendar, day by day by day, is describing the flow of intuition. There is one major, you can write this one down, one major rule in the universe. This is the supreme rule in the entire universe. What you pay attention to you become conscious of. Period. It doesn't matter if you're a 5-year-old paying attention to how many ants are on a stick, or if you are some super-dimensional being who's paying attention to 3 or 4 dimensions all at once. It doesn't matter. What you pay attention to is what you are conscious of. Period. How much toothpaste you're putting on the brush in the morning is you're paying attention to that. Which side of the road you're driving on. Everything. What you pay attention to is what you become conscious of. What you do not or will not pay attention to, you cannot be conscious of. You can be unconscious of it. You get the point? So, what if every day you were paying attention to the flow of creation? What if every day you knew what creation intended today? And you did that, and you did that, and you did that. Say from birth. As a cultural practice. The Maya did. And as little as you know about the Maya, possibly, there is a general perception amongst everyone that I've talked to that the Maya had something special going on. That they had some special relationship with nature. Has anybody run into that here? How many people have kind of had that feeling? Maybe that's why you showed up. Because you thought the Maya had something special. And that something special was their intuition. They were living by it, every day, all of the time. It works like this. The Maya understood from birth that there was another orientation to consciousness. That we have this one. We have time and place, right? This is our orientation to our consciousness, time and place. The Maya had another orientation. Personal intent. Remember the 1 through 13? The personal intent, the personal choice of why you came. The Maya knew that. It was another orientation of their existence. Have you ever been someplace you really didn't intend to be? Like school? Or work? Or in the middle of an argument? Were you very centered? Or were you kind of upset at those times? I know personally I'm upset. When I'm someplace I don't really intend to be, there's a real upsetness that exists there. And you're not very centered. You want to write something else down? I got another one for you. These are important. And I'll go slow on this. It's a formula. Peace of mind. Write that down first. Peace of mind. Peace of mind comes only when you are centered. Where does centeredness come from? Centeredness comes from certainty. So, right, peace of mind equals centeredness. Centeredness equals certainty. Certainty comes from the recognition of patterns. I'm going to run through this again real quick. Peace of mind. Everybody wants peace of mind. Peace of mind is when you can have your intuition. In fact, the definition of peace of mind would be intuition. Living by it. Peace of mind equals centeredness. Centeredness equals certainty. Certainty equals recognition of patterns. Look back at anything you learned. One is driving. Who had peace of mind the first time they sat behind the wheel? Oh, I thought so. Why not? Well, you weren't very centered. You weren't certain because you didn't know the patterns. Brake, gas, clutch. Woo! Ignition. You know? Shift lever. Brakes. You didn't know the patterns. Not even to mention the roads, rules of the road, and those other stupid drivers out there. Which by now, you've proven you're still alive. You have learned those patterns. And now, when you get behind the wheel, you at least have an opportunity for peace of mind. Right? No matter what it is. It could be the waltz. It could be a cha-cha. It could, go out and tango. It takes your own personal certainty, your own recognition of the patterns to be able to do that. The more you're certain of the pattern, then the more peace of mind you have out of a dance floor. It's your whole process. So, by following the Mayan calendar day by day by day, what are you recognizing? The pattern. The pattern of all of creation. And what that automatically does, without thinking about it at all, without even having to consider, well, today is 3, and that means I should communicate, and let's see, that's a transformation, I'm going to transform today. No. None of that is necessary, none of that is helpful. Just knowing that that is the intent on the part of creation. And then going on with your day, whatever happens. That's what's important. Over a period of time, as you become more and more oriented to this, your consciousness becomes more oriented, more and more it just flows naturally. That the intent of the day plays out in your life. It's not a mystery. It is the same formula we were just saying. The peace of mind comes from centeredness. It comes when you're centered, which comes from certainty, which comes from the recognition of patterns. The more you study it, the more you recognize the pattern. Very simple. Like I said, the Maya had this other orientation of personal intent, and that was according to the 260-day calendar. And then there's this. This is the divine plan. In our civilization, what plan? According to science, it's all been one happy little accident. $16 billion years of coincidence. That led you to that place in the chair. In the Maya civilization, they knew about the divine plan. And everyone, their purpose, their life purpose, in India it's called Dharma. Serving your purpose, finding your purpose. Well, each person is a Maya. Their personal worth was how much they participated personally in this divine plan. How attuned were they to it? The kings and priests were established to be the most attuned to it. But all the people were ascribing to that. This symbol is a Mayan symbol. And it has a Mayan name. That is called the 8th division sky place. You see the 8 divisions there? This is their symbol for heaven. You've been there. You have had your consciousness oriented by time and place your own personal intent for being there, and an intuition that you were tied up with something much, much bigger than yourself. That you are obviously here doing this for a bigger reason. Felt good, didn't it? Heavenly, huh? That's what the Mayan calendar is about. That's all it's about. It's not about astronomy. It's not about alignments. Those are incidental. Those are secondary truths. Those are large causes, but ultimately they're effects of a greater cause. The Mayan calendar is a tool to do this. To tune your consciousness to the flow of creation and engage your intuition. Now, I'm not saying this is the only way to do it. I am saying that this way works all the time. Every time. And now we have this tool. That's why I'm talking to you guys. And to everybody else who will listen. And I'd do it for free. Except I couldn't eat. So, these moments by 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 moments are going to get closer and closer and closer together as we go forward here. And as that happens, this is all going to become more and more possible. Everything is possible in the first place, right? Because we live in an infinite universe. As more and more of infinity happens in every moment, as time is compressed into smaller and smaller areas of event, it's sort of like, okay, let's say we had 3 marbles. Oh, let's do this. Let's flip the paper. I got a demonstration for you. I already wrote it out, so I'll do it this way. This is a demonstration of what we're actually going through. And then we're going to go into some deeper detail of the immediate future. But overall, in general, this is what's going on. Here is a moment. And this moment is from the past. Now, in the past, there was only so much going on at any given time. For our purposes, let's say that there were 3 different options available at every moment in the past. That would be something good for you, something bad for you, something right down the middle. Okay? And it's your job to pick out which one's going to get you to your goal. Whatever the goal is. So you're smart. You're going to take the most direct path. So let's make this one be, we'll just make this be the most direct path. We'll put the goal down here. Like that. Okay? So you decide and go in that direction. Toward your goal. And there's only one secret to getting to your goal. Persistence. It's the only thing that makes it. I mean, it doesn't matter what your goal is. I mean, it could be a 6-pack down at 7-Eleven or a Harvard education. What gets you there is persistence. So, we have this. This is the moment in the present. In the present, fairly obviously, there's more happening. More options. Just, you want some proof? Go order a cup of coffee. Like Starbucks or one of your little coffee houses. Back here, there was black, cream, and sugar. Now you go in and you want that fat or light. You want that with cinnamon sugar, you want this syrup or that syrup. There's more options. Used to be you wanted to go to a movie. You picked out which movie house in your area you wanted to go see, and you went and saw that movie. Now you want to go to a movie? Well, which multiplex are we going to go to? And then you stand out and you look at the marquee and you say, what am I going to pay attention to tonight? Out of all these options, what am I going to pay attention to? You have more options than any humans ever have had, ever. So, still your job is to get to your goal. Here's your goal. Which one are you going to take? Boom, that one. And you know what? Look what happened to the persistence. The persistence is shorter, isn't it? Have you come up with friends and neighbors, experiences where somebody comes up to you and says, you know, I was just thinking about such and such, and wow, it happened. I knew that this and this was going to happen pretty soon, but it already is. Hasn't that happened to you? Either other people coming up to you or your own experience? The persistence between your idea or plan and the actual manifestation of it is shrinking. It's going to keep on doing that. This is both for good and not so good. What a person puts their attention on, they're going to become conscious of faster and faster. This means people who are in their mind, which is where fear lives, and all those dire circumstances which aren't here yet, that could show up at any moment, are going to. And people who live in their intuition, knowing what benefit they're going to receive, that's going to show up faster and faster. It already is faster, isn't it? Here we are in a moment of the future. A few more options. I mean, back here, you want to go to Tahiti, build a boat. Here, you want to go to Tahiti in the present, go up to your computer and tap a few keys. You got a ticket. In the future, you want to go to Tahiti? Here, step in this little booth and punch those coordinates. And then walk back out of the booth onto the sand. We are already doing teleportation. You know that? They're teleporting light. They started with doing teleportation of light. Now they're teleporting visible lumps of matter, trillions of molecules at a time. They're not yet concerned with the order of those molecules, how they arrive at the other end. We're not there yet, but they're able to do it now. Remember the transistor radio? And how fast that sucker developed into solid state and now into digital chips and on infinitum. We haven't even started to see the acceleration yet.
How are these Israelis able to target those Hamas people so accurately?
How are they able to what?
To target these Hamas people that they assassinate so accurately. How does that happen?
Oh, the Hamas people.
Yeah, well, the Israelis target them, right?
Yeah.
And they hit them in the middle of thousands of other people.
Well, that's what we're told. They blew up a car, that's for sure. Who was in there? They don't care anymore. They're dead. You can put any label on them. We did that with the brothers. Hassan and Hassoun, whatever the guys. Who knew who these people were? And their bodies have never been examined by anybody. Yeah. What I'm talking about is that there's going to be more and more changes. Just imagine for a moment that we actually get the teleportation going. Then what happens to everybody who works on trucks? Driving trucks, working in retail. What happens to those people? What happens to the people who are doing ship freighting or air freight? What happens to those folks? Who's going to ride an airplane that might blow up when they can just step in a booth and step out? I'll tell you who. Those people who are afraid. Those people who would ride the airplane that would blow up. The people who trust, those people who get in that thing, dematerialize and materialize on the other end. Who would do that right now? Not everybody. And if you went out into the shopping mall and asked that, Beam Me Up Scotty is just a little bit too far ahead of these guys, but we are embracing it. That's because this is the future, and it's coming really, really fast. So as we were talking before the break, more and more happening in every moment. As we were talking before the break, more and more happening in every moment means that more and more is possible to occur. This is actually the source of all of the miracles that we are experiencing. Medical miracles. I mean, how many people are alive in the room today because of a medical miracle developed that would have, not developed, you'd be out of it? 2, 3 people. Okay. And some of you may not even know that you have been the beneficiary of one of those developments of medicine. If you look carefully at things like the development of communication, there was first writing, then there was the newspapers, then there was telegraph, then there was the telephone, then there was the radio, then there was the television, now there's the internet. What's next? Telepathy. Wide open, accepted telepathy. And the reason that is going to be happening, is simply because we expect, our consciousness expects to be able to be in instant communication with anyone, anywhere. You know, you hear people decry technology. I know I do. In fact, in the past, I have complained about technology. But looking at this whole pattern, technology is really only the footprints of consciousness. You can't really see consciousness, but you can sure see where it's been. Because there will be a piece of technology sitting there. These developments of these communication abilities, for instance, are the footprints toward telepathy. And we're all getting it. Those people who are afraid to divulge all secrets will be precluded from experiencing telepathy. Those people who have nothing to hide, those people who are living ethically, will be able to experience telepathy. It's our own barrier that is being broken down by a thing called Big Brother. Big Brother is eliminating the secrets. Big Brother knows nearly everything there is to know about each of you. It is a piece of technology, or a conglomeration of technology, forcing us toward a different way of living. Now, there's a fear associated with Big Brother. That's because right now we have a power consciousness. And who knows what they're going to do with that information to empower themselves over you. That's the fear. The fact is that an ethical consciousness would not use any of that information to harm you in any way. And that's what we're moving toward. So in the future, the possibility of telepathy is wide open. These are the kinds of developments that will be happening that will radically change our world. Radically. Hundreds of millions of people put out of work by the advancement of technology, by the advancement of consciousness. It's already happened to millions, but it's going to happen to hundreds of millions of people. This could be a little upsetting as we go forward. But there is no stopping it. There's only understanding it and being with it. Hello.
You said that hundreds of millions of people will be put out of work because of the advancements of technology and consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But those are two different things, aren't they?
No.
No?
Because technology is only the footprints of consciousness.
Because of the consciousness we develop the technology.
Right. Yes. Because of their consciousness, we've developed technology. And then used that technology to become more conscious. It is a two-way street here. Now, let's talk about what's going to happen at the end of the Mayan calendar. And then we will kind of backtrack a little bit and go into what's happening right now in our immediate future. Okay? What happens? What happens on the Mayan calendar, October 28th, 2011, is absolutely everything, all at the same time. There's an acceleration of more and more of creation available in every moment. You got that? More and more of everything available in every moment. We've already looked at the past and saw all of it up to this point. It's all still available. And more is becoming available in every single moment. What happens, finally, is the acceleration gets so great that absolutely everything which is infinitely possible all happens at exactly the same time. Which is the truth in the first place. Consciousness or creation exists in total, all past, all future, all exist right now. That's the fact. We are these little kids down here trying to figure out what's on the top shelf about that situation. But the fact is, everything all exists all at the same time. And that is going to be more and more revealed as we go forward. With no limit on time. Well, by the way, I didn't bring this up earlier, but we're also doing time travel. I don't know if you guys have heard anything about it. But they have found a way to slow and even stop light. And as you slow light, it gathers more mass. And as it gathers more mass, it actually alters the time of elements. So we have now altered the spin of electrons by slowing light. And we have time-traveled electrons. Not objects yet, not animals yet, but electrons. We've already done it. It's just a matter of very little time before we start to be able to alter time with technology. That's on the way to this. Time and space will no longer exist as barriers of any kind. You can be anywhere, anytime, all everywhere, all the time, by the time we get here. To try to explain what that would be like is pretty well impossible. We just don't have the words or the consciousness yet to grasp that. If you watched What Dreams May Come, that movie, What Dreams May Come, what the person paid attention to showed up, didn't it?
Who was in that movie?
Robin Williams, yeah. What the person paid attention to was their manifest reality. That's the closest analogy we can come to what this is all about. But with no limit. The only limit would be your imagination. But by that time, your imagination is going to be as infinite as creation. That's where this is all headed. That's where it has always been headed. These layers are building and building. And what they're building is heaven. Everywhere. Yeah.
But none of this would be available without the ethics.
That's right. Absolutely important. Vital. Extremely.
Without what?
Ethics. What he just said is none of this would be possible without ethics. Absolutely correct. We're going through a sieve here. Wheat from the chaff. Sheep from the goats. exactly as prophesied, exactly on time, we're going to go through the eye of the needle, folks. And you don't get through that eye encumbered. I bet you've noticed things falling off, haven't you? First, all kinds of considerations about who you are, who you should be. Those things have fairly well dissipated, or you wouldn't be in this room. Maybe some job positions, maybe a relationship or two have just sort of peeled off. Expect a lot more of that. Yeah.
You know, one thing that occurred to me a while back too is that at any time I attempt to control anything, it turns around and controls me.
That's right.
And so as soon as I let go of any attempt to control, then the freedom occurs.
Yes, that's true. You see, that if you look at, I mean, what's power all about? Control. That's what it's all about. Has been all about, is control. Without ethics, that's all this is aimed at. Now everybody's had the inkling, some inkling of ethics all the way up, but it hasn't been the driving consciousness. It hasn't been that impetus of change. So between where we are now, which is the third day, and this right here, we have a lot of changing to do. Or allow. Okay? More. Just allow it to occur and not resist it. The resistance is trying to exert control over the rate of the change or the direction of the change. Ethics, on the other hand, is going to be flowing with that change. I wanted to go through, it's very important that we get this understood, what we're going to be going through the next few steps. And I just want to, I could redraw this, so I'll just do it. I'll just do it here. January 5th, 1999. Can anybody remember what they were doing in January of 99? I can't. I can't. Let's go on.
Oh, well, that was the when it was going to change over to the millennium.
No, it wasn't. 99, January 5th, 99 was the beginning of that. And it was right around March or so that I personally heard about Y2K. And that future loomed bigger and bigger and bigger. See, during the first day, this is the beginning. It'd be like holding a seed in your hand. It's not planted yet. It's just potential. Here's an idea of what will be. That's what this is about. That's the intention of one. And that's where this was. And that idea was that you had better become self-dependent. That whole message, you be self-dependent. Because what was shown to us is that our systems were not dependable. Up until that point, no one had a glimmer. Oh, we knew we were polluting the planet. We knew that eventually we'd destroy it all with our systems. But nobody was looking at the fact that the systems themselves could break down. Not until that consciousness was injected into us. And then this line right here, that blue line, the beginning of that first night, was December 30th, 1999. was that idea raging about that time. Of course, nothing really drastic happened other than the changing of consciousness, which is all this is about anyway. The events are secondary. Consciousness first. So, first of all, we got the idea. Then what you do is you take and you plant the seed in the ground. That's the first night. So the seed goes in the ground and it germinates. Now, we all had a plan, whether it was a detailed plan, whether we had boxes of food or not. We all had some sort of a sketchy plan as to what we'd do if the whole thing went down the chute. Didn't we? Not that you talked about it to your neighbors because they didn't want to hear it. But we all had a contingency. As vague as it might have been, we had that. And during this period of time, all those plans sort of, because nothing happened, they sort of all just got integrated into everything that was going on. Then we come up here to the second day. The second day is when the seed sprouts up out of the ground. And you all know, the sprout comes up, oink, oink, 2 leaves, displaying polarity. Left, right, light, dark, male, female, good, bad. They're displaying that. That's what this is all about. You know what happened right during that period of time? The WTO riots.
Which ones?
The first ones.
Yeah.
In Seattle. The haves and the have-nots went on display. And it went from the WTO, which is the focus of this power consolidating. It went from that and spread into all these other conflicts and decisions. Have you noticed how difficult it is to come up with a decision like that? On the part of those in power. Do you know that the Olympic judges can't even make a decision? Have you noticed that? Things are so evenly split, or had been so evenly split in consciousness, that there was inaction. How about the presidential election that happened right here? That was no decision, was it? It was a criminal ripoff on a worldwide scale. And we've seen more of it since. No wonder, because the third day is all about the display of the truth, coming forward to consciousness. Give you an example. I'll start down here. During the national cycle, in the third day of the national cycle, Moses received the 10 Commandments. Is that law? Was that the truth of that time? During the planetary cycle, the third day was when the abolitionist movement started. That is, anti-slavery. Also, the women's suffrage movement started at the same time, in the third day. Is that a truth that was exposed to the world consciousness? That everyone is equal? Did that become law? Has it been usurped by power?
Yes.
But the truth was laid down in the third day. It was the third night of that cycle that we had the Civil War. It was that third night here that there was, in Egypt, there were massive revolts. Their whole civilization started to crumble from within during the third night, after the Israelites had left and the plagues and pestilences descended, and civil strife everywhere. This third night starts December 9th, 2003.
Since when?
December 9th, 2003. We start the third night.